slashing our public services. They have not only introduced £9,000 in fees, they have not only slashed our EMA, they're launching the full-scale ideological attacks on every single person dependent upon public services, dependent upon education in this country. And this wholesale attack will transform society. It will transform society in the interest of the few, the rich and the powerful. And those interests are diametrically opposed to the interests of us, the students, the wider public, the trade union movement. And we should be standing up to these Eton tops who are transforming the society. They say we cannot afford decent jobs for all. They say we cannot afford our universities. What we need to be saying at this moment in time is we cannot afford the Tories any longer in power. They must go. With our national demonstration on the 10th of November, we broke through the cuts consensus. We laid the foundation for how we fight back, for what kind of resistance we need to austerity, for what we can say, how the public needs to respond to the cuts we have ahead. It inspired hundreds of thousands of students up and down the country to walk out of their lectures, walk out of their courses on the 24th of November. And this movement, largely led by FE students, is a movement that shook the government to its very foundation. And what about the health workers? What about the public sector workers? What about our trade union fellows in the UCU? If they go out on strike on the 30th of June together and we come in with our militancy behind it, we can shake this government and break the coalition in two. How weak the government is at this moment in time. They retreated over the sell-off of the forestry, and they're retreating over the sell-off and privatization of the NHS. And this coalition is so weak that they have to resort to nasty methods. They have to resort to nasty methods of bigotry. And we stand in a proud tradition of standing shoulder to shoulder with our Muslims and brothers and sisters. From the day that the EDL marched in Luton, we said no pasaran, the EDL shall not pass, we shall stand together shoulder to shoulder. They're slashing LGBT services, and they're slashing the disabilities and the public mobility allowance. And we need to be saying that this divisive politics is not the future for this country. This divisive politics is not the future of our national union of students. Cameron can scapegoat people, but we will stand united. And standing united means taking the questions hard on, tackling the questions that the movement throws up. So when it came to violence on the 10th of November, we needed to be talking about the violence that happened in the students' movement. It wasn't the violence of the students that was appalling. It was the violence by the police. It was the violence twice on the demonstration. It was the violence of having Alfie Meadows, a philosophy student at Middlesex, being battened over his head. It was the violence of Tamina Bax. Tamina Bax wearing a hijab, being treated by medics, and being torn her hijab off of her head. That's the violence we need to be talking about. And unlike our leadership, which failed to stand shoulder to shoulder with our students on the day of the 10th of November, when the right-wing media witch-hunted our students and the police came and knocked on people's doors in the early hours of the morning, I stood there shoulder to shoulder with each and every student. And on the 9th of December, when our leadership failed to call a national demonstration and instead held a 200-week glow-stick vigil, we mobilized 30,000 students. It is between those who say business as usual, the fight is over, and it is between those who voted for a national demonstration and yesterday's motion. And it is between those who say we need direct action and we need the widest possible support against the austerity measures ahead. We need a new type of leadership which takes the question full on. And conference, we need to be talking about an alternative to austerity right here. We need to be talking about the very fact that we are being made for a crisis that we did not create in the first place. And even Big Ben sending the bill back to the bankers who created the crisis in the first place, rather than talking about forced closures. We need to be talking about tax evasion and tax avoidance, which amounts to $95 billion and could pay for everyone's education for the next 30 years.